This is CBN NewsWatch.
Thanks for joining us for this first edition of CBN NewsWatch for Wednesday, June 12th. I'm Mark Martin. Today, protests escalate in Hong Kong as people there take a stand against a bill they say would give China power against its political opponents. Southern Baptists hold their annual meeting. The big issue, dealing with sex abuse in churches. A SWAT-style raid by the state on a Christian school in California, why they did it and what happened next. And a teacher loses his job because he would not use the right pronoun to refer to a transgender student, why he's being called another casualty in the battle over transgender rights. Those stories and more today on NewsWatch. We begin with escalating massive protests in Hong Kong today as police fired tear gas and high-pressure water hoses against protesters outside government headquarters, opposing a bill that would allow Hong Kong to extradite people to mainland China to face charges. The legislature announced that vote on the bill scheduled for today had been postponed, but they did not say when it would be held. The bill has been widely criticized by human rights and business groups. Opponents say defendants in the Chinese judicial system won't have the same rights as in Hong Kong. Some critics warn that China would use the measure to go after its political opponents. The Southern Baptist Convention's annual meeting is heading into day 2, ready to tackle more tough issues the church faces today. Front and center on this year's agenda are issues including sexual abuse and discrimination. Delegates yesterday voted to make it easier to expel churches that mishandle abuse cases. The panel tonight is expected to address a racism amendment that would allow the removal of a church that affirms, approves, or endorses racial, or ethnic discrimination. Former SBC President Dr. Ronnie Floyd said Tuesday that a major reset is needed for Southern Baptists to move forward. President Trump and the Democrats' leading presidential candidate Joe Biden both traveled to Iowa Tuesday for what could be a preview of next year's general election. The gloves are off and both men are already taking aim at each other. Charlene Aaron has that story.
Dueling rallies in Iowa Tuesday gave voters a glimpse of what could lie ahead in the 2020 presidential campaign. The former vice president calling Trump a threat to the nation.
The president is literally an existential threat to America.
Trump called Biden a failing candidate, labeling him 1% Joe, who is slower than he used to be.
He was someplace in Iowa today, and he said my name so many times that people couldn't stand it anymore. No, don't keep saying it. Sleepy guy.
Speaking on CBN News' Faith Nation program, Matthew Continetti of the Washington Free Beacon explained why Trump is zeroing in on Biden.
Well, Biden's currently at the top of the Democratic pack, and I think that attracts President Trump's attention. And so whoever's going to be in that top slot is going to be the person that President Trump devotes his attacks to.
One surprising move, Biden flip-flopping on the need to get tough on China. Just last month, he said China is not competition for us. But yesterday, he said this: "We are in competition with China. We need to get tough with China." The White House has imposed 25% tariffs on $250 billion of Chinese imports and plans to tax more. He's convinced the pressure will force China to make a deal in the same way they worked on Mexico last week.
And you know what happens with tariffs? Companies will move out of Mexico, and they'll move out of China, and they'll come into the United States.
Do you think the same strategy that President Trump used with Mexico will also work with China?
I hope so. I think all Americans hope that this strategy of holding these countries' feet to the fire and using American leverage. We clearly had leverage over Mexico, and that's how Trump scored a big victory.
In a first look at head-to-head 2020 presidential matchups nationwide, according to the independent Quinnipiac University poll, several Democratic challengers lead President Trump, with former Vice President Joe Biden ahead 53 to 40%. Meanwhile, President Trump still has strong support among evangelicals. A new survey commissioned by the Faith and Freedom Coalition finds 83% of white evangelical voters approve of the president and the work he's doing in office. Charlene Aaron, CBN News.
And in Washington, after a deal delaying a criminal contempt vote against Attorney General William Barr, House Democrats are voting to hold him and the former White House counsel in civil contempt, all because neither complied with House-issued subpoenas. Abigail Robertson brings us that story.
The Justice Department argues House Democrats are picking a fight over documents Attorney General Bill Barr maintains he's not at liberty to disclose. The fight on the Hill is heading to court.
It's something Congress has never done before. It's not enforcing about subpoena power.
Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy called the civil contempt resolution an underhanded ploy for impeachment.
They're trying to get to impeachment without having their members actually vote upon it.
House Speaker Nancy Pelosi counters this battle is about enforcing congressional power.
My obligation is to do whatever we do in the most effective way possible.
But at an event in Washington, Speaker Pelosi wouldn't rule out an impeachment.
It's not off the table.
In defiance of congressional subpoenas, the White House has invoked executive privilege to prevent former counsel Don McGahn from testifying. And Barr maintains Justice Department regulations require grand jury material be kept secret, even from Congress.
No single person in the United States of America is above the law.
The civil resolution is the latest muscle flexing from House Democrats after backing down from voting to hold Barr in criminal contempt. That came only after the Justice Department agreed to provide some underlying material from the Mueller report.
We are going to use every available means at our disposal to enforce our right as a separate and co-equal branch of government to hold a potentially lawless administration accountable.
Republican Steve Scalise said American priorities are at odds with a Democratic drumbeat towards impeachment.
You're seeing on the floor again this week Speaker Pelosi wasting her majority on presidential harassment.
Charging Barr or McGahn with a civil lawsuit could bring the case to court fairly quickly, but resolving that case is another matter. After Attorney General Eric Holder's case went to court during the Obama administration, legal proceedings only ended last month after nearly 7 years. Reporting from Capitol Hill, Abigail Robertson, CBN News.
Texas Governor Greg Abbott signed into law Monday a measure known as the Save Chick-fil-A bill. The Texas legislature passed the bill after the San Antonio City Council voted to block Chick-fil-A from opening a restaurant at the city's airport because Chick-fil-A's owners had donated to Christian groups who support traditional marriage. Like the Salvation Army and the Fellowship of Christian Athletes, critics argued that Chick-fil-A was discriminating against the LGBTQ community by opposing same-sex marriage, but supporters said the bill was necessary to protect religious freedoms, including individuals where they donate their money. Well, coming up, a tactical raid on a Christian school in California and the battle for the rights of every school like it in America.
We will move the American embassy to the eternal capital of the Jewish people, Jerusalem.
As the nations rage, you can stand with Israel.
History is being written, and I want to be a part of it.
Call 1-800-700-7000 and get to life.
This is our nature as a country.
Discover the untold story of how Israeli volunteers are changing the world.
We consider it our duty to reach out and help others around the world.
For a gift of $10 or more, you can own the acclaimed CBN documentary To Life.
To treat a human, no matter what he is, which religion he has, which color he is, this is what I'm doing.
Support Israel in their time of need. Get to Life, now available on DVD. Call 1-800-700-7000 or log on to cbn.com.
And I wish that other people throughout the world could see this side of Israel.
Or
Orphans Promise is committed to loving and serving at-risk children, to helping keep families together, and to creating opportunities for strong and sustainable communities around the world. We're working in over 60 countries around the world, and with your help, we can do even more. There's an old African proverb I love that says, if you want to run fast, run alone. But if you want to run far, run together. At Orphans Promise, we want to run far so we can touch the lives of as many orphaned and vulnerable children as possible. But we don't want to go alone. We're out to change the world, one child, one family, one community at a time. Will you join us?
Get the top political news and analysis from Washington on Faith Nation, tonight at 6 Eastern, only on the CBN News Channel.
Check out the CBN News Daily Rundown podcast each weekday with me, Caitlin Burke. Click on the show tab at cbnnews.com where you can listen and subscribe.
A SWAT-style raid on a California Christian school plays out in an unbelievable way. After reading internet rumors, the state raided the Riverview Christian Academy earlier this year. The rumors claim the school was harboring illegal drugs and ammunition, along with preparing for an end-times apocalypse. The raid turned up no such evidence. Instead of apologizing for the blunder, the state fined the school that operates as part of a ministry called Teen Rescue. They're accused of operating an unlicensed community care facility and is fining it. The Pacific Justice Institute represents Riverview and says this is a fight for the future of all Christian schools. Our Wendy Griffith spoke with Brad Dacus of PJI about the case.
Can you elaborate on how this all started? Tell us about the raid.
Yeah, first, this is a fantastic Christian academy, highly respected. Many parents, they send their children here, and they're having a normal day. And what happens? The state of California, Department of Social Services, they find out from a third-party, far leftist site on the internet that there's allegedly some kind of drug dealing or weapons. It was just a smear on this wonderful Christian academy. So what do they do? Instead of investigating responsibly, they come in with 16 troopers, 2 canine units, and a host of social workers, just totally blitzkrieging the whole campus, looking at everything, interrogating everyone, everything. And then when they found out that there was nothing there, they doubled down and decided to push them even further and declare that they have to be licensed by the state. And if they're not, they're going to be levied large fines against them. It's an atrocious violation of religious freedom, as well as parents' rights over their children and the teaching and training of their children as well.
Yeah, tell us, Brad, why should every Christian and private school be very concerned about this?
Yeah, if the state gets their way and they are willing and able to require this school to be licensed, what we're talking about is the state's requirements that this no longer effectively be a Christian school, because the school will no longer be able to restrict the sexual activities of the young people. They will no longer be able to give them clear boundaries regarding religious instruction. This will no longer be a Christian boarding school. And not only this one, but the very few others that exist will be effectively shut down and secularized overnight. And if they get away with this, then the next step will be to apply these same principles to private Christian schools throughout the state of California. And it's not going to stop in California, Wendy. We're going to expect to see this copied in other states across the country, starting with the dark blue states and then moving on in. So it's a very serious concern regarding the rights of a private entity not receiving government money to be able to have a religious school, religious training, quality academics, with parents wanting to be able to and being able to send their children to that kind of a school for that kind of training, that will be completely wiped away in the free United States of America. And that's why we at the Pacific Justice Institute have stepped in.
Well, right. Well, real quick, Brad, what's next in this case?
Well, we have filed a lawsuit against the state of California because of this continued bullying and harassment and threats. The state of California has countered, and they have filed a lawsuit in Shasta County Superior Court. We're in full force litigation. We're taking on the state of California with all their resources. But this school is not backing down. They know everything is on the table. And we at the Pacific Justice Institute will be in full force litigating this all the way to the Supreme Court if necessary.
All right, Brad Dacus with the Pacific Justice Institute. Thanks for your work on this important case, and we appreciate your time.
Oh, thank you.
Still ahead, the story of a teacher who was fired because he wouldn't call a transgender student by the pronoun the student wanted. He'll tell you why he's being called a casualty in the battle over transgender rights when we come back.
Wouldn't it be great if you could just hop on a plane and fly to a third world country and hand out food and medicine to the needy? And wouldn't it be great if some of those people came to know Jesus as their Savior because of your help? And wouldn't it be great if you could help out people like this all around the world every day? Wouldn't that make you feel great? And what if you could do all of this without having to leave your home or write monthly checks? Well, you can. Partner with CBN and you can help spread the gospel all around the world and make it a better place. And when you sign up for Pledge Express, your contribution will be deducted from your bank account every month automatically. It's a safe and simple way to make a difference. Plus, wouldn't it be great to get life-changing teachings every month from Pat and Gordon? When you sign up for Pledge Express, you'll save time and money, and you won't just sit around and watch the world go by. You'll help change it for the glory of God. Now, wouldn't that be great?
When you care, souls are set free. When you give, lives are made new. When you share, eternal life begins. When we all come together to love, miracles happen.
Welcome back to CBN NewsWatch. Many teachers are looking forward to summer break, but Peter Vlaming just wants a chance to get back into the classroom. He was fired in December for refusing to call a transgender student by the student's preferred pronoun. As Charlene Aaron tells us, he's a casualty in the growing debate over transgender rights.
When Peter Vlaming was terminated from his job as a French teacher here at West Point Public High School, it sent shockwaves across the country.
So you never attacked the student or said, I disagree with what you're doing or made the student, belittle the student or anything like that?
Not at all. And it's not my place as a public school teacher to give my view on that subject.
The case involves a 9th grade student who transitioned from female to male and requested to be called by the male pronouns he and him.
The students were very accepting of the change, and even myself, I could in good conscience use the student's new name.
Citing his beliefs, Vlaming told CBN News he could not refer to the female student as male.
I could not, in good conscience, based on my Christian faith, call a girl a boy.
For that reason, officials placed him on administrative leave in October.
I was told that not only would I pronounce masculine pronouns when referring to the student when students were present, but I would do so even when students weren't present. I was given a written ultimatum that insisted that I use masculine pronouns for this student, and that I would be fired if they deemed I was avoiding the use of masculine pronouns.
2 months later, the school board made its decision.
I had a hearing on December 6th, and after it was long, it was a 4-hour hearing, and afterwards the West Point Public School Board unanimously voted to fire me.
Students at the school were outraged. Forest Road, a West Point junior, rallied students to protest Vlaming's firing by staging a walkout.
I'd say we had like 150 people out there, and we had them like all circling around, marching, chanting, ranting, all that type of stuff.
He called the school's treatment of the French teacher unfair and felt he needed to act.
I did the oath of enlistment a couple weeks ago. I'm going to be joining the Marine Corps, and I'm going to be, defending people's rights to express themselves. And I'm going to be defending the Constitution, and that's really important to me. And I want to make sure everybody's rights are protected.
Similar cases are cropping up across the country. Lawmakers in California are debating a bill that would force foster parents to use any gender pronouns their foster children want. Some universities, including the University of Tennessee, are urging faculty and students to use so-called gender-neutral pronouns in the belief that it will create a more inclusive campus.
I believe that in our country, people should have the right to express that belief, as I can disagree. And my fear is that, it's not even a fear, it's happening. It seems that the kind of the general belief now is that if you don't agree with a particular position, well, that means that you hate the person who holds a differing view. And it's just not true.
CBN News reached out to officials at West Point for comment on Vlaming's case. We were referred to a statement released by the school's attorney, which says, Mr. Vlaming insisted on treating a transgender student differently than other students in the classroom, singling out the student on the basis of gender identity. In addition, Mr. Vlaming refused to comply with administrators' directives to follow division policies. During the public hearing before the school board, Mr. Vlaming again stated that he would not comply with these directives. Accordingly, the school board voted unanimously to terminate his employment. Meanwhile, Vlaming is looking into a possible appeal.
I was pursued with the intent of getting me to fall in line, with getting me to believe in a very specific way. And that's not okay. That's not okay. In our country, we're supposed to have a freedom of conscience and not to be compelled to believe in a very specific way, especially with regard to something as fundamental as human nature.
He says being out of work for nearly 6 months has not been easy for his family.
A couple years ago, I was offered jobs to teach in surrounding counties. Since all of this happened, since I was fired, I've applied to 2 different districts who needed a French teacher immediately, and I couldn't get an interview.
Day by day, he says, his faith is giving him the strength he needs.
There's bound to be opposition to living for God. I was brought to a point where I had to make a decision that cost something. And when that happens, it's an opportunity to grow in your faith. It's an opportunity to show the Lord, yes, I am for you. Yes, I trust you.
Charlene Aaron, CBN News.
Coming up, how CBN's Operation Blessing is helping refugees fleeing from the deadly crisis in Venezuela with supplies and health care. We'll have that story when we come back.
I am Region's first ROTC graduate student.
When you give, smiles grow bigger. When you care, homes are happier. When you comfort, the hurt goes away. When we all come together to love, miracles happen.
Young people, millennials, are flocking to church.
It's not an exaggeration to say that we love to meet them and that we love to know their stories.
The crisis in Venezuela is so bad that people have to choose between staying and possibly starving or leaving and possibly dying. Many have decided to take their chances on the roads out of their country. The journey is hot, long, and dangerous. And so CBN's Operation Blessing is providing these refugees with much-needed supplies and medical care. Take a look.
This is the highway that thousands of Venezuelan refugees are walking every day as they flee the humanitarian crisis in their country. To get to this point, they have walked 3 days, facing the blazing sun. They're exhausted, dehydrated, and in need of food and basic medical attention. For many of them, the long journey continues into Ecuador, Peru, and as far as Argentina.
I thought it would be easier. I thought it wouldn't hurt this much to see my daughters and my mom in such conditions. One of the first nights we spent in the shelter, my mom had an awful night. She asked us to just leave her there in the shelter we found. She had an stomach issue, and we had to use all the diapers we had for my youngest daughter. Anyway, we have all come as a group, walking, and we haven't split up.
Operation Blessing is strategically positioned to meet and aid Venezuelan refugees along the way. We have set up water filtration systems in key locations along the route and medical tents to treat those suffering from dehydration, respiratory and stomach infections, blood pressure problems, and other ailments inflicted by the journey.
Thank you, Operation Blessings, for the support you have given to the Venezuelans who came on this road with the same destination, with the same need. It is truly a big help. We are very grateful.
Wow, great that OB is there. You can find out more about what Operation Blessing is doing by visiting ob.org. Well, that's going to do it for today's first edition of Newswatch. You can find more about the issues you care about most at cbnnews.com and can watch CBN News programs anytime on our CBN News channel. Plus, tell us what you think about the stories you've seen here by emailing newswatch@cbn.com or talk to us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Hope you'll join us next time. Have a great day.